Why I married an older woman is a question whispered in every corridor, debated in every gathering, and carried like scandalous gossip beyond the walls of the palace. They speak of it as if it were a mystery too great to comprehend, as if age itself were crime, as if love could ever be measured by years rather than by depth. But they do not know what I know, they have not seen what I have seen, and they will never understand what I felt the very first time her eyes met mine. It was not youth I sought, not beauty that fades with time, but strength, the kind of strength carved from storms survived, from battles fought, from wounds healed without complaint. She carried within her a dignity that no crown could ever bestow, and a wisdom that silenced even the chaos inside me. In a world where everything felt rehearsed, where every woman I met wore a mask taught to please, she alone was unafraid to stand in truth. They asked me if it was her experience that drew me, and I told them yes, but not in the way they imagine. Experience is not about years, it is about living fully, about scars worn without shame. She had known heartbreak and betrayal, she had tasted loss and loneliness, and yet she still stood tall, unbroken, her heart still capable of love. You know how rare that is in a world where most grow bitter, where most allow time to harden them. To me, she was not older, she was timeless, like the stars that shine the same whether seen by a child or a king. And in her presence, I did not feel like a prince bound by duty, but like a man finally seen for who he truly was. Those who question my choice do not understand that the palace is full of people who want me for what I represent, not for who I am. But she, the woman they call older, looked at me with no fear of my crown, no hunger for my title. Her gaze pierced through all the layers, past the prince, past the hair, past the name, until it reached the boy I once was, a boy who longed to be loved simply for existing. With her, I am not a ruler or a symbol, I am flesh and blood, flawed and vulnerable. And that is the rarest gift of all, rarer even than the throne I was born to inherit. Yes, she is older. Older in wisdom, older in patience, older in grace. But what they do not realize is that her love is not burdened by insecurity, nor is it laced with childish games. She does not measure affection in fleeting gestures, but in constancy. She does not speak of forever lightly, she speaks it as a vow, as a truth she knows the weight of. When she holds me, I feel the steadiness of someone who will not falter at the first storm, someone who will not crumble when the world turns cold. To love her is to anchor myself in something unshakable, something eternal. And perhaps that is the true reason I married her, not because she is older, not because she is different, but because with her, I finally understood what it means to love without fear. She taught me that love is not bound by age, but by soul. And her soul, it was the only one that ever called mine home. They look at me, and wonder how a prince could make such a choice, as if love is meant to be calculated like an alliance or balanced like numbers in a ledger. They whisper behind fans, trade sly glances in council chambers, and spin endless stories of why I did what I did. But none of their words, none of their shallow assumptions, even graze the truth. For me, it was never about what the world thought appropriate, it was about what my heart recognized as irreplaceable. I was surrounded by women who had been groomed since childhood to fit the role of a princess, polished to perfection in etiquette and beauty. But when I looked at them, all I saw were reflections of each other. She was different. She carried a fire that wasn't taught, a calm that wasn't rehearsed, and a kind of beauty that had nothing to do with youth. That was the kind of beauty that came from surviving, from knowing who she was and never apologizing for it. There is a strange kind of peace that comes from being with someone who has lived long enough to understand the fragility of life. With her, every word matters, every touch carries meaning, every silence is sacred. She does not rush to fill the air with empty chatter. She lets me breathe. She lets me exist without demanding performance. And when she does speak, her words are carved with wisdom, not the fleeting winds of inexperience. In her presence, I feel steady, as though the storms outside cannot touch me, as though even the weight of the crown is lighter because she knows how to bear it with me. That kind of companionship, that kind of strength, is worth more than any illusion of perfection that the palace could have placed at my feet. The truth is, Love is not a game of appearances, it is survival. In a world where betrayal hides behind smiles, and every gesture has an agenda, I needed someone who would never waver, who would not treat me like a prize, but as a man made of flesh. And instead of shrinking away, she embraced them, as if to remind me that I was human before I was a prince. That kind of love, that kind of acceptance, is not measured in years. It is measured in courage, in truth, in the rare ability to love without condition. I know the world does not understand, and perhaps they never will. They see numbers, but I see eternity. They see years, but I see moments that will outlast time itself. Every day with her feels like a defiance of everything the palace ever tried to teach me about power, about duty, about the limits of love. And maybe that is what unsettles them most, not that she is older, but that she has given me something no throne, no law, no alliance could ever give: freedom. Freedom to love without fear, freedom to be seen without judgment, freedom to belong to someone who does not bow to the crown, but holds my heart instead. The palace thrives on appearances, on carefully constructed illusions meant to please the eye and silence the heart. But when I stand beside her, I feel no need for illusions. With her, everything is stripped bare: me titles, my privileges, even my pride. She has a way of looking at me that makes the weight of gold and marble crumble into dust, as if none of it matters compared to the man I am when I am with her. The courtiers, the advisors, even the whispers of the kingdom, they all pale when measured against a single glance of hers. She is not intimidated by my power nor blinded by it, and perhaps that is why her love has become my sanctuary. In her arms, I am not a prince destined for scrutiny, I am a man who is finally allowed to breathe. The world clings to shallow measures of worth. They count years like coins, as if youth is wealth and age is debt. But I have learned that years are not chains, they are treasures. Every wrinkle in her smile, every line in her gaze, speaks of battles she has fought and survived. Each one tells me she knows the taste of loss, the sting of betrayal, the ache of loneliness, and still, she chose love again. That to me is strength. That is beauty. When she walks into a room, she does not beg for attention, she commands it without trying. There is a grace in her presence that younger hearts cannot imitate, a calm that can only be born from fire endured and storms weathered. I did not fall for her age. I fell for her soul, a soul that carried the kind of wisdom the world could never teach me. In her presence, the palace loses its poison. The corridors no longer echo with whispers that haunt me, because I know that beyond the closed doors, there is someone who waits, someone who sees me stripped of the armor I wear for the world. The throne may belong to me, but the crown often feels like a cage. She is the only one who can free me from it, not by tearing it away, but by reminding me that beneath it, I am still human. She holds me when the crown feels heavy, speaks truth when the halls echo with lies, and gives me courage when my own resolve begins to waver. That kind of loyalty cannot be bought, cannot be inherited, it is given only when love is true. The kingdom will continue to whisper, to question, to twist my choice into a scandal they can feast upon. But let them. Their voices do not carry into the chambers of my heart. They do not know the peace I feel when I awake and find her beside me, the way time itself bends and slows when her hand touches mine, the way even silence between us feels sacred. They do not know the fire that surges in my veins when she looks at me as though I am not a ruler, not a prince, not in her but simply hers. And in that moment, every doubt, every whisper, every judgment from the outside world becomes meaningless. For love, when it is real, does not ask permission. It does not bend to rules. It does not fade with years. It is eternal, and so is she. The palace has always been a place of tests of loyalty, patience, and endurance. Every day, power is bartered in hushed conversations, and alliances are built on fragile trust that can shatter with a single whisper. In such an environment, love is often treated like a weakness, a distraction that rulers cannot afford. Yet with her, love became my greatest source of strength. She gave me something the palace never could truth. In a world where deception thrived like a second skin, she looked me in the eye and spoke with a rawness that cut through every mask I had ever worn. And when she touched me, it was the touch of someone drawn to a prince. It was the touch of someone who saw the man, bruised and weary beneath the crown, and chose to stay. Her presence unsettled those who stood against me. That courage seeped into me, reshaping the way I carried myself in battles both political and personal. With her, I learned that true power was not in silencing enemies, it was in standing firm when their voices grew loudest. There were nights when the weight of my name pressed so heavily upon me that I thought I would break. Nights when the silence of my chambers echoed louder than the calls of the court, when loneliness felt like an endless desert stretching before me. And yet, she was the oasis I found in that emptiness. Her arms reminded me that I was more than a duty, more than a title, more than the expectations shackled to my name. She taught me that intimacy is not in grand gestures or carefully rehearsed lines, but in the quiet moments when two souls simply breathe together and find comfort in the nearness of each other. Those were the nights when I realized that I had not chosen her out of rebellion, nor desperation, nor lust, but out of a truth that ran deeper than any oath I had ever sworn. It will always say, I could have had anyone. That youth and beauty were mine to claim, that tradition should have guided my hand. But what tradition fails to account for is the heart, and mine was never swayed by appearances or expectations. It was captured by her resilience, her fire, her ability to love me without being blinded by the glitter of my world. She was not impressed by the palace gates or the silks or the jewels. She saw them for what they were, illusions, and still, she chose to love me, not the prince, not the power, but the flawed, imperfect man who hides beneath it all. That to me, is a treasure worth defying the world for.